A man rides a donkey down a narrow, sun-baked ravine between two vineyards. The air is choked with white dust. The Sunday school reading completely misses. Balaam is not a comic relief character. He is the most dangerous kind of enemy Israel ever faces. The Spirit of God rushes over the mercenary. He delivers a messianic prophecy. He speaks of a star coming out of Jacob, a scepter rising out of Israel that will crush the foreheads of Moab. Down in the valley, the Israelites are gathering manna. They are repairing their sandals. They are tending their flocks. They have absolutely no idea that heavily armed kings and world-famous sorcerers are trying to wipe them off the face of the earth just a few miles away. This is not a battle Israel fights. It is a battle Israel sleeps through. God simply stands over the camp like a shield of bronze, absorbing the arrows of the enemy while his people go about their day. The protection is absolute. The fortress holds. Balak claps his hands together in absolute rage. The sound echoes off the rocks. He fires the prophet on the spot. He tells Balaam to flee back to the Euphrates, without a single chest of silver, without a single ounce of gold. The ritual is over. The mission is a total failure. Balaam turns to walk down the mountain, but the mercenary is not ready to leave empty-handed. If he cannot break the shield from the outside, he will teach the king how to dismantle it from the inside. He is a man who knows the voice of Yahweh, who speaks the absolute truth of Yahweh, and who still manages to sell the people. There is a violent narrative whiplash between Numbers chapter 24 and chapter 25. One moment, God is defending the camp against the highest spiritual artillery of the ancient world. The shields are up. The fortress is absolutely impenetrable. The very next moment, the gates are wide open, and the camp is dying. Israelite men are suddenly accepting invitations to Moabite and Midianite festivals. They are eating meat sacrificed to foreign idols. They are pulling pagan women into their tents. They are bowing their faces to the dust before the Baals of Peor. The anger of the Lord burns against them, and a devastating plague tears through the camp, dropping 24,000 bodies into the desert sand. What just happened? How did a spiritually unbreakable nation suddenly fracture and collapse from the inside? The narrative text does not give you the answer right away. It waits until chapter 31 to reveal the fatal detail. Israel is sent to execute vengeance against Midian. They sweep through the territory. They slay the kings. And the text notes, almost as an afterthought, that they also put Balaam the son of Beor to the sword. But when the army returns, Moses is furious. They have spared the Midianite women. He points at the captives and speaks, the line that unlocks the entire mystery. Behold, these caused the children of Israel, through the counsel of Balaam, to commit trespass against the Lord. The word the English translators render as counsel or advice is the Hebrew aitzah. It is a noun derived from the root ya'atz. It appears over, of Yahweh for a chest of foreign silver. He does not attack the camp with iron chariots. He does not attack them with bronze spears, 80 times in the Hebrew Bible. And it does not mean a casual suggestion whispered on the way out the door. It means a highly deliberate, strategic plan, a calculated scheme designed by an advisor to achieve a specific political or military outcome. It is the exact same word used in 2 Samuel to describe the legendary counsel of Ahithophel. Ahithophel was King David's advisor who defected to Absalom, and the text says his aitzah was considered so brilliant, so strategically devastating. It was as if a man had inquired at the oracle of God. That root changes everything about what happened on the mountain. When Balaam realized he could not break the spiritual shield with divination, he did not just walk away. He gave Balak a military blueprint. He told the king exactly how to bypass Yahweh's protection. If you cannot curse them, seduce them. Send your women down into their camp. Bring the heavy, sweet-smelling incense. Bring the roasted meat. Get them to bow to your gods. And the covenant will trigger on itself. Their own God will have to judge them. This was not a failure of prophecy. It was a triumph of sabotage. The Israelites were not conquered by a foreign army. They were destroyed by their own appetites. Balaam figured out the ultimate loophole. Yahweh will defend his people from outside curses, but he will not force them to stay inside the fortress. The mercenary found a way to get his silver after all. He sold the strategy. He attacks them with a loophole. An altar is built. A sacrifice burns. A blessing is spoken. And yet, a nation is brought to its knees for the destruction of a nation. And that specific strategy was so terrifyingly effective. The early church would have to face it all over again. An old man sits on a damp, jagged rock, surrounded by the Aegean Sea. The wind tastes of heavy salt. The prison island of Patmos is brutal, isolated, and quiet. He unrolls a rough sheet of parchment, dips a reed pen into dark ink, and begins to record a vision from the risen Christ. He is writing a letter to a church in an ancient city called Pergamum. The city is wealthy. The city is culturally advanced. The city is a center of imperial power. But the letter contains a chilling diagnosis. Jesus tells the church that he has a few things against them. And the primary issue is this: they have people among them who hold to the teaching of Balaam. Thousands of years have passed. The desert of Moab is ancient history. The chests of silver are buried. Yet, the ghost of the mercenary prophet is actively haunting the early church. In fact, the name of Balaam is a recurring alarm bell in the New Testament. It shows up exactly 3 times. Peter writes a warning. He points to leaders who have wandered off the path, driven by greed, following the way of Balaam, without a single arrow flying through the air. Balaam is a mercenary of the spirit. He is a man who tries to manipulate the creator of the universe, who loved the wages of wickedness. Jude writes a warning. He points to men who have secretly slipped into the church, declaring that they have rushed for profit into Balaam's error. John writes his warning. He points to a church tolerating men who taught Balak to entice the Israelites to sin, so that they ate food sacrificed to idols and committed sexual immorality. Same name, same threat, same tactic. The New Testament writers are watching the exact same virus infect their congregations. The Roman Empire is pressing in. The cultural pressure is massive, and false teachers are rising up from within, offering the believers a comfortable, seamless compromise. They are telling the Christians that they can go to the trade guild feasts. They can eat the meat from the pagan altars. They can participate in the sexual economy of the empire. They can blend in. The error of Balaam is not a theological misunderstanding. It is the monetization of grace. It is the belief that you can manipulate God's covering while actively participating in Babylon's culture. It is the lie that obedience is negotiable as long as your theology is technically correct on paper, through technicalities. And his shadow is so long, so deeply destructive, that thousands of years later, the writers of the New Testament are still using his name. Balaam had perfect theology. He knew exactly who Yahweh was. He spoke some of the most beautiful prophetic poetry in the entire biblical record, but his heart belonged to the highest bidder. The New Testament writers saw the trap. A church cannot be destroyed from the outside. If you persecute them, they multiply. If you throw them to the lions, their blood becomes seed. But if you offer them a comfortable compromise, if you make the rebellion look like a reasonable cultural adaptation, the fortress collapses from the inside. And this is where the ancient history suddenly catches up to the modern heart. We do not live on the edge of a scorching desert. We do not have foreign kings parking camels in our driveways, unloading heavy chests of hammered silver onto the dry dirt, and asking us to curse our enemies. But the human heart has not evolved a single inch. If you look closely at the architecture of your own life, you might find the ghost of the mercenary prophet standing right in the middle of it. The error of Balaam is not an ancient artifact locked in a museum. It is the subtle, quiet temptation to treat the creator of the universe like a divine consultant. It happens when you know exactly, as a warning label for the early church. There is a detail hiding in plain sight about this man. To understand how he almost destroys a nation, what the voice of God has already said. But you keep going back into the quiet to ask for a different answer. You want the promotion that requires you to bend your ethics. So you ask God for a feeling of peace about taking it. You want the relationship that you know is pulling you into the dark. So you search for theological loopholes to justify the connection. You sit in the cold, blue glow of a screen late at night, consuming a culture that actively hates the covenant you belong to. And you tell yourself that you are simply being culturally relevant. This is not a sudden rebellion. It is a negotiated surrender. The mercenary heart does not openly reject the altar. The mercenary heart wants the absolute protection of God while desperately holding on to the paycheck of Babylon. It wants the flawless, orthodox theology of the prophet while savoring the roasted meat of the Moabite festival. And the terrifying truth is that it actually works for a little while. You can build the altars. You can speak the exact right vocabulary on a Sunday morning. You can even experience the genuine presence of God. Balaam heard the true voice. Balaam felt the Spirit rush over his own body on the mountain peak. Having a powerful spiritual experience does not mean your heart is actually surrendered to the one who gave it. Your gifts can operate. You have to look at where the messengers actually go to find him. Because Balaam is not an Israelite, and he does not live anywhere near the desert, long after your obedience has died. If you are in a season where you feel a deep internal fracture, where your public faith looks incredibly polished, but your private life feels like a series of exhausting, quiet compromises, you are walking the road to Pethor. You are carrying the heavy weight of a divided allegiance in your chest. You are trying to find the exact line between how much of the world you can consume without technically losing the covering of the kingdom. But Yahweh will not be managed. He will not be negotiated down to a manageable size, and he will not endorse a loophole. He loves you too much to let you comfortably settle in the tents of an enemy that wants to consume you. The story of the mercenary prophet leaves us with a terrifying mirror. But if we step back and look at the entire narrative arc, it also leaves us with a profound, unbreakable promise about what God is actually doing when we cannot even see the arrows flying. A king offers a chest of heavy silver, and a prophet tries to negotiate the word of God. An angel draws a sword in a narrow ravine, and a blind seer beats the animal that sees the truth. The geography of the ancient world reveals the sheer panic of the Moabite king. Israel is camped on the plains of Moab. An altar is built to launch a spiritual curse, and a blessing pours out of the burning smoke. A second mountain is climbed to break the camp, and the shield of heaven holds completely firm. A mercenary sells a quiet loophole in the dark, and an unbreakable nation fractures from the inside. An apostle writes a letter from a prison island, and an ancient virus is found in the blood of the early church. A modern believer tries to manage a divided allegiance, and the exact same choice waits at the door. One thread, one story. But here's the part I keep coming back to. While the highest spiritual artillery of the ancient world was being fired from the high places of Baal, Israel did not fire a single arrow back. They were down in the valley, gathering manna. They were repairing their leather sandals. They were tending their flocks, completely unaware of the massive unseen war raging just above their heads. God did not ask them to fight the divination. He just asked them to stay inside the camp. If you are in a season where you feel surrounded, Balak, the king, watches a massive, sprawling camp of former slaves settling on his borders. He knows what they did to the empire of Egypt, where you are exhausted trying to manage your own spiritual defense, or tempted to compromise just to survive the pressure of the culture. Look at the valley. The defense of your life is not a negotiation you have to manage. It is a covenant you simply abide in. You do not need to find a loophole. The fortress is already built. The only way the enemy wins is if you willingly walk out the front gate to attend his festival. And may the God who stood over a wandering people, like a shield of bronze, give you the courage to drop the heavy bags of silver. Refuse the quiet compromise, and rest in a defense that has never once failed. If this reached something in you, subscribe. Leave a comment, even one word helps. Share this with someone who is wrestling with compromise and needs to remember the fortress. Pray for us, as we keep digging into these texts. The path is walled in by stacked stones, leaving no room to turn left or right. Suddenly, the animal beneath him panics, throwing its weight sideways. He knows what they just did to the Amorite armies. The military option is completely off the table. He needs a spiritual weapon, so he sends a delegation of elders to a place called Pethor. Pethor is not the next town over. It is not a neighboring tribe hiding in the local hills. Pethor is situated near the Euphrates River, in northern Mesopotamia. We are talking about a journey of roughly 400 miles across brutal, waterless terrain. It would take weeks, if not a full month, of travel through searing desert heat and hostile territory, dragging heavy chests of silver and gold the entire way. Balaam is not a local village shaman. He is an international spiritual commodity. In the ancient Near East, diviners were not fringe characters operating in the shadows of society. They were highly educated, highly paid state officials. They read the livers of slaughtered sheep. They tracked the subtle movements of the stars. They specialized in cursing enemy armies before battle. A psychological warfare practice the Romans would later call evocatio, the formal calling out and neutralizing of an enemy's patron deity. Balaam was the absolute best of the best. We actually possess archaeological proof of his immense reputation. And crushing the man's foot against the jagged rock wall, he curses. He raises a wooden staff and brings it down hard across the animal's back. In 1967, excavators digging at a site called Deir Allah in modern-day Jordan unearthed fragments of ancient plaster from the wall of a ruined building. When scholars pieced the dusty shards together, they found a text written in black and red ink. It was a recorded prophecy, and the very first line read, "The warnings from the book of Balaam, the son of Beor, a seer of the gods." The man was a historical reality. He was a brand name in the ancient world. When Balak's messengers finally arrive at the Euphrates, their camels coated in white dust, they present the king's royal offer, the fee for divination, the urgent request to curse the camp of Israel. And this is where the biblical text does something deeply unsettling. We expect a pagan sorcerer to immediately consult his foreign idols. We expect him to pull out the clay tablets, light the bitter incense, and read the geometric omens. But he does not do that. He tells the messengers to spend the night, and he goes to speak directly with Yahweh. Balaam already knows the God of Israel. He already has a working bad, communicative relationship with the creator of the universe. He hears the voice. He receives the answer. The Lord tells him, plainly and without any ambiguity, "You shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed." You probably know this scene. It is a staple of children's ministry and illustrated Bibles. The talking donkey, the foolish prophet. It is a closed door, a definitive no. Balaam wakes up, delivers the rejection, and sends the men back into the punishing desert. The story should end right there on the banks of the river. But a king terrified of losing his kingdom does not accept a single rejection. More dust rises on the eastern horizon. More camels. More guards. More weight. Balak does not send the same messengers. He sends princes, men draped in the heavy, dyed fabrics of Moabite royalty, arriving with a much larger caravan. They ride into Pethor carrying a blank check from a desperate king. "Let nothing hinder you from coming to me." The message reads, "For I will surely do you great honor, and whatever you say to me I will do." Balaam stands in the dusty courtyard. The air smells of animal sweat and exhaustion. He looks at the chests of silver resting on the dry earth. He looks at the bracelets of hammered gold. His response sounds incredibly devout. It sounds like the perfect answer of a faithful prophet. He tells the princes that even if Balak gave him a palace filled with silver and gold, he could not violate the word of Yahweh. His God. He says the exact right words. He projects the exact right theology. But then he adds a single sentence that betrays the rot growing inside his chest. "Please, stay here tonight, that I may know what more the Lord will say to me." What more? Yahweh had already given the answer. The angel of the Lord standing in the road with a drawn sword invisible to the religious professional, but terrifyingly clear to the beast of burden. The answer was a definitive, absolute no. The people are blessed. You cannot curse them. The case was closed. There was nothing left to discuss. But Balaam wants the silver. He wants the honor. He wants the prestige of standing in the Moabite court. He is not seeking God's will. He is seeking God's loophole. This is the moment the prophet falls. It does not happen on a high mountain overlooking the camps of Israel. It happens in his own house, in the dark, when he decides that the revealed word of God is simply the opening bid in a negotiation. So he goes back into the silence. He asks a second time, and this time, the answer shifts. God tells him to go. If the men have come to call you, rise. Go with them, but only do what I tell you. To Balaam. It feels like a victory. It feels like God has changed his mind. But in the ancient text, this is not a concession. It is a judgment. God is handing Balaam over to the gravity of his own greed. You want the silver? Go get it. Morning breaks. The sun clears the horizon. Balaam does not wait for the princes to call him. He is the one rushing. He saddles his donkey. He pulls the leather straps tight across the animal's back. He mounts up and rides out with the princes of Moab. Most people read the story of Balaam as a strange, isolated comedy buried in the back half of the book of Numbers. He thinks he has won. He thinks he has manipulated the divine legal system to get the gold, without technically breaking the rules. But the air on the road is about to turn cold, because the man who claims to see the future is riding straight into the blade of a drawn sword. But the detail that changes how you read this entire journey is buried in the bags of silver tied to the camels. In Numbers chapter 22, verse 7, the text tells us exactly what the elders of Moab and Midian are carrying when they first arrive at the Euphrates. The English translations usually say they departed with the fee for divination in their hands. It sounds like a standard business transaction, a consulting rate for a traveling professional. The word the text actually uses is the Hebrew kuisem. It appears across the Old Testament, and its range of meaning is exclusively dark. The root carries the idea of cutting, dividing, or determining a fate by drawing lots. In the ancient Near East, kuisem was the practice of manipulating the gods, forcing the divine hand through ritual, magic, reading arrows, or slaughtering animals to look at their entrails. It is the exact same word Moses will later use. They assume it is a bizarre fairy tale about a stubborn man, a miraculous animal, and a God who protects his wandering people from a distant pagan curse. In Deuteronomy 18, when he strictly outlaws any Israelite from practicing witchcraft, it is the same route the prophet Samuel will use when he looks at a rebellious King Saul and declares that rebellion is as the sin of QSM, the sin of divination. That root changes everything. This silver is not a neutral consulting fee. It is the currency of spiritual treason. Balaam is riding out to accept money derived from a system of manipulation that Yahweh absolutely despises. He claims to be following God, but his pockets are weighed down by the economy of the enemy. If watching a biblical narrative break open like this is stirring up questions you've never considered, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe, because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So the famous seer rides his donkey toward the plains of Moab, and this is where the biblical writer deploys a devastating piece of literary irony. Balaam is a man whose entire reputation is built on his vision. He is the professional seer. He is the man who claims his eyes are open to the spiritual realm. Kings pay vast fortunes just to access what this man can supposedly see, and it does carry that weight sometimes. God does protect them, but if you look closer at the geography of the high places this prophet climbs, yet as he travels down the narrow, sun-baked ravine between the vineyards, the angel of the Lord stands in the path with a drawn, gleaming sword. The seer is utterly blind. The heavy spiritual reality blocking the road goes completely unnoticed by the highly educated professional. Instead, it is the donkey, a simple, mute beast of burden, a creature of the dust that sees the terrifying presence of God. and swerves into the stone wall, crushing the prophet's foot. The man who is paid to see the invisible beats his animal for refusing to walk into a divine blade. God eventually opens the donkey's mouth, and then he opens the prophet's eyes. The sword lowers. The journey is allowed to continue, but with a severe restriction: speak only what is given. Balaam finally arrives at the edge of the Moabite territory. He climbs the high places with the king. He looks down at the sprawling tents of Israel. But what happens next on those mountain peaks defies every expectation of ancient warfare. Balak drags the prophet up the mountain. The air is thin. The wind pulls at their heavy robes. They stand on the high places of Baal, staring down at the valley. Below them, the tents of Israel stretch out like a massive, quiet city across the desert floor. At the specific Hebrew words a desperate king uses to hire him, and at the devastating wreckage he eventually leaves behind, you start to see something. Balak demands the ritual. Balaam gives the orders. 7 altars are built. 7 bulls are slaughtered. 7 rams are placed on the wood. The blood runs down the stones. The thick smoke of burning meat rises into the desert sky. Balak waits for the curse. He waits for the spiritual weapon to deploy. The curse does not come. Balaam opens his mouth, and poetry pours out. He blesses the camp. He declares, their numbers will be like dust. He asks to die the death of the upright. Balak is furious. He thinks the geography is the problem. He thinks changing the angle of the vision will change the mind of the deity. So they move to a second peak. The field of Zophim. 7 altars. 7 bulls. 7 rams. More blood. More smoke. Balaam looks down at the camp. He opens his mouth again. The blessing is even stronger this time. He declares that God is not a man who lies. He declares that there is no sorcery against Jacob, no divination against Israel. Balak is desperate. He drags the prophet to a third peak, the jagged top of Peor, looking out over the wasteland. 7 altars, 7 bulls, 7 rams. Balaam looks down at the tents arranged in perfect tribal order. He does not even look for omens this time.